It began with a letter and a petition.
Please add your signature to this open letter, signed by more than 600 national and international women's rights groups, leading survivors of the sex trade, human rights advocates, medical doctors, Hollywood actors and directors.
Lena Dunham, Kate Winslet face off with Amnesty International over sex trade debate. Any sanctioning by the state could lead to a system of gender apartheid, in which women whose lives are shaped by the absence of choice are set apart for consumption by men.
We were quite surprised by this letter. On the one hand, it really mischaracterizes the policy that we're looking at. We are focused on how can we keep sex workers safe, how can we empower them to have access to their rights, how can we make sure they have access to healthcare.
And it snowballed worldwide.
Amnesty International says prostitution is a human right, but it's wrong.
Amnesty is arguing that prostitution is a matter of free choice, a stance heavily promoted by the multi-billion-dollar commercial sex industry. The group is putting forth the view that sex work is compatible with the principle of gender equality and non-discrimination, as if it were a job like any other.
Look, prostitution is not a human right, but sex workers have human rights. They have the right to safety, to healthcare, to be free from trafficking, exploitation and force. And that's what we are about. That's what we're trying to remedy with this policy. What policies, what government measures protect those rights the best? And that's what we're doing in this policy today. Secondly, when you look at gender equality, we are not blasé about this. I mean, we know that gender equality and other forms of inequality and discrimination are pushing people into the sex industry. We believe that you cannot punish those who are therefore driven to sex work by criminalizing it and in fact taking away choices. We believe we need to work on gender equality more broadly, and that's what we stand for.
Amnesty International considers pushing for decriminalization of prostitution.
The effort to crack down on a largely male clientele while sheltering a mostly female workforce is taking place just as the human rights group Amnesty International is advocating a new course, decriminalizing all prostitution, both for buyers and sellers.
We believe that, of course, decriminalization of sex workers themselves is essential to protect them and grant them access to the rights they are entitled to. But we're also opposed to criminalization indirectly that leads to the practice going underground, leads to lack of safety. And so, for example, by criminalizing the buyers, a lot of sex workers have told us in those kind of countries that they feel less safe because they're forced to go underground, they're forced to meet people in their homes, for example. And so ultimately, again, it has the same impact as criminalizing of sex workers themselves. The same goes for third parties, for Brussels, for exploiters. Of course, we're against exploitation, but we don't believe that criminalizing broadly sex work protects those women. Some sex workers want to work and live together, for example. That could be qualified as a brothel. So it all comes back to the same point. We need to find measures that protect sex workers in practice and give them the access to the rights they are entitled to.
Amnesty International is about to make sex trafficking easier worldwide.
At its biannual summit in Dublin on August 7th, Irony International will vote on a proposal advocating decriminalisation of prostitution, not just selling, but also pimping and buying sex worldwide. The rationale? Women will be safer when all of those involved, including pimps, brothel owners and buyers, don't operate underground.
There is no evidence to suggest that somehow trafficking goes up when sex trade is decriminalized, sex work. However, women actually can participate in some of the prosecutions much more easily of traffickers if they are not underground and if they're in a position where they can discuss things with the police openly and not afraid of the police, as we've documented in so many countries where it is a crime. Trafficking is an abhorrent human rights abuse. Amnesty International is crystal clear. We want the police and governments to focus on ending trafficking, ending exploitation, ending forced labor, but not punishing those who need our protection the most.
On the 11th of August 2015, in the crucial vote at Amnesty's International Council meeting in Dublin, delegates from around the world adopted a resolution which authorised the organisation's international board to develop and adopt a policy to protect the human rights of sex workers.
This has been a long road. 2 years of discussions all over the world, and it's been an incredibly rich debate that we welcome. We believe that now we can really push for the rights of this extremely vulnerable group that needs to have access to healthcare, safety, and to be free from violence. That's what we are about. We're about protecting the human rights of those individuals.